Hey guys, what's up? It's Savannah. Welcome back to another episode of My Thoughts Exactly. Thank you guys so much for joining me here today. I am so happy that you are here. Happy Friday, you guys. I hope that you have had a great week. And if you have not, guess what? We made it. It's Friday. It is the weekend. Personally, I've had a pretty good week so far. I will say though, there is something in the water today. I'm filming this on Tuesday and you guys are going to see it on Friday, but there is something in the water today where every single thing that I am doing, every single thing that I have done today, something has gone wrong. Do you guys ever have those days where it's like nothing is coming out right? Like nothing that you're doing ends up working? That is the type of day that I am having, and the weather is not really helping either. It is just like one of those cloudy, gloomy days where you just want to curl up in a ball. But honestly, sitting here and talking to you guys always makes me feel better. So I'm really, really excited to sit down and just chit chat with you today about a topic that I personally love very much. It is very near and dear to my heart because I feel like I have a lot to say about it and a lot of kind of experience when it comes to this specific topic in general. So I asked you guys on Instagram which topic you wanted to see for the podcast today. I asked if it was going to be either this topic, which as you can tell by the title, today we are talking about how to avoid the roommate phase when living with your partner, or I asked you guys if you would want to hear my reactions to your unpopular opinions. And guess what? It was 50-50, right smack dab down the middle. So because of that, I decided this week we are going to be doing this topic, and then next week we will react to all of the unpopular opinions. So make sure you go submit those and make sure you are following the My Thoughts Exactly Instagram page if you are not already. That way you're just always kept up to date with the things that we're talking about in episodes. It's always where I go to you guys and ask for your opinions, episode topics. It's where we do all the What Would Sav Do's. Every possible thing related to this podcast is on the My Thoughts Exactly Instagram page. So make sure you go follow it to catch up and just keep caught up on everything. But I am actually very excited that you guys were interested in this topic today because, like I said, it is one that I am very familiar with. It is one that is very near and dear to my heart. And if you need to know my credentials on this topic in particular, I have been living with my boyfriend Hayden for, it'll be 2 years in August. So we moved in together in August of 2023. August of 2022 is when we moved in, and that's almost 2 years of living in this house. So because of that, I feel like I have a good I have a good idea of what it's like to live with a partner and to live with a significant other. And Hayden and I did move in very early on to some people's standards. I know I live in Nashville, and there is a tendency here I've noticed to do things at a more expedited pace than, let's say, California, where I was before I moved to Nashville. Like, people in the South move at a different pace. And I'm not complaining because I did too, and I love it. It was a great decision and the best decision for me. But we moved in at about 9 or 10 months of dating. And I remember when I first told the internet, like I remember there was a specific vlog that I posted where I talked about the fact that Hayden and I were going to move in together, and the backlash, you guys, the backlash was crazy. It was as to be expected because honestly, I was nervous telling everyone that we were going to move in together. I honestly forgot that I was like a 25-year-old adult who was almost 26 and can make her own decisions and choose what she wants to do with her life. But I was definitely a little hesitant to tell people because I knew that it was like faster than what a lot of people do. I know a lot of people who wait years before moving in with their significant other. And along with that, I was the first one out of any of my friends who had moved in with their boyfriend or their significant other. All of my friends, who by the way had been dating their partners way longer than I was dating Hayden, had not moved in with their boyfriends at that time or their partners. And so I was kind of the guinea pig. I was kind of the tester of all of this. And the one thing that I really kept telling myself when going into this process of living with my boyfriend, I was like, okay, this is either going to work or it's not. That was kind of like my mindset. I was like, it's either not going to work and I'm going to find out very quickly. And that was kind of like what people were telling me. That was like the one piece of like almost backhanded advice that people were giving me. It's like, oh, well, at least, if you're moving in together this soon, you'll find out very quickly if this is the relationship for you or not. And I'm like, okay, like looking back, I'm like, what were you really trying to say? But at the time it was true. And that's what I kept telling myself. I'm like, this is either going to work or it's not, because in my personal opinion, I do think that moving in together oftentimes is the make or break of a relationship. I think you find out a lot about someone when you move in with them. That is not to say though that you need to move in with them. I'm not here to like persuade anyone or push anyone to do this, because I know everyone has their own timeline and everyone is very, everyone is different on their, dating and relationship journey and how they want to navigate things. I have friends who aren't moving in with their significant other until they get married. I have friends who don't want to move in with their partners until they're at least engaged. I have a lot of different friends that navigate this in different ways. And I think that's a really beautiful thing, to be able to look at other people's journey and like, be able to see that it works so well for them. And that doesn't mean that what you're doing is right or wrong or whatever, but I just want to put that out there too, because I don't want it to make it seem like I am really like pushing for you to do this or that this is the only way to do things, because obviously it's not. But I'm just giving you my personal experience from doing this myself. That's how I would put it. But yeah, the one piece of advice I kept telling myself was, this is either going to work or it's not. And because, like I said, I was the first one out of my friends to move in with my boyfriend, no one really had any advice to give me, because again, no one had done this before. So by the time all of my friends were moving in with their boyfriends, it really was a matter of like them looking to me, not because I am, the master at this by any means, but I was really the only one that they knew at the time, or one of the few that they knew that had done this. And they were looking for, tips or what to expect. I had a friend, a couple weeks ago asked me the same. It was like a couple months ago that she was moving in with her boyfriend and it was super last minute. And I gave her some tips. And one of my biggest tips was, watch out for the roommate phase. And when that phase occurs, try and get ahead of it. And we're going to get into all of that today, because when I moved in with Hayden, I had really no idea what to expect. I was very naive to a lot of it, but I was very excited. And I'm not saying any of this to remove that excitement. If anything, I'm just like telling you guys my experience about this, because I want to give you a little bit of like logic when going into this. And I want to give you just a little bit of like guidance on how to navigate this specific, this specific phase that sometimes comes with living with a partner. And I want to reassure you that it's normal. It's freaking normal to go through the roommate phase. And the roommate phase is not something that anyone told me about when deciding to move in with Hayden. And if you're wondering, Savannah, you keep saying roommate phase this, roommate phase that, what the heck is the roommate phase? I'm going to tell you. The roommate phase for me is basically when you and your partner who are living together begin to drift apart as a couple. The everyday mundane things start getting in the way. You fall into more of a repetitive routine and you're not focusing on the relationship. And oftentimes you act more like roommates than you do significant others. That's why it's called the roommate phase. And so I want to dive into it today. And the first thing that I want to tell you, if you are ever in a situation where you feel like the roommate phase is approaching, the first thing that I want to remind you of is not to freak out, because I think it's very common is the right word to think that when a problem arises or you're feeling this roommate phase come on, it's easy to panic. It's easy to be like, oh my God, this isn't the right relationship. What did I do? It shouldn't be feeling like this. Like, we should still be in the honeymoon phase. Like, why are we feeling this way? Why are we getting in little tips? Why are we doing this? Why are we doing that? It is so freaking normal. Like, the roommate phase does not mean that your relationship is doomed. It does not mean that you picked the wrong partner. It just means that you need a little bit of a relationship refresh. And that is okay. It's also really important to remember that there are always going to be growing pains when you move in with someone, and your growing pains with your partner might look different than your friend's growing pains with their partner, but there are always going to be a little bit of growing pains because you have basically gone your entire life. If this is your first time moving in with like a significant other, you have been going your whole life kind of just focusing on yourself, focusing on your own space, regardless of how long you've been dating this person for, and regardless if you've, spent weekends with them or gone on vacation with them or spent several days sleeping at each other's places, you've always been able to separate and go back to your own space and regroup, recharge, refresh. And now things are different because now you are merging your life with another person. You are cohabitating with another person. So naturally, there are going to be those growing pains. And that is so okay. It is so natural. It is so normal. It's so as to be expected. Every single one of my friends who has moved in with their significant others, not only have they gone through a roommate phase at least once, but they have also had to deal with those growing pains. And you don't really realize it until you're in the thick of it. Like until you're like, why are we clashing? Why aren't we meshing as good as we used to? Or why are these little tiffs coming up? It's because you're going through growing pains. It's because you're realizing how to live with one another. It's because you're trying to figure out how to navigate this new chapter of your lives together. This is something that neither of you, if you haven't lived with someone, have done before. And even if you have lived with someone else, like a significant other, you haven't lived with this new person. And so you're still trying to navigate. You're trying to figure it out, and it's a process, but it's going to be okay. I promise you there's a light at the end of the tunnel. Now, something that I really want to focus on, and it's so crucial when talking about the roommate phase, is the difference between passing time and quality time. A lot of times when we move in together, we have a tendency to forget the difference between passing time and quality time. And if your love language is quality time, this is going to be so freaking crucial for you. This whole idea of passing time and quality time, this was something that Hayden and I had to learn very, very quickly when moving in with one another. And it was something, again, that we were not prepared for. Now, what I mean by this is there is a difference between going throughout your day, seeing your significant other here or there, whether that's a text, a phone call, you see them before they leave for work and when they come home, or in my case, when you both work from home, you're seeing each other throughout the day, just passing each other through it, like while you're both doing your work stuff or while you both have got things going on, running errands, you're kind of beep bopping in and out of the house, and you see each other in passing. That is not quality time. And you might be sitting here being like, Savannah, no shit. Like, duh, of course. But it's not as simple as you would think. It's not as no duh as you sometimes would think. It might be to, I don't want to say all girls and not to all guys, but it might be something just as women we're more in tune to than men are. Because I know from my experience and all of my friends' experiences, it's been something that the girl has had to bring up to their boyfriend. It really hasn't been the other way around. And I remember when I first noticed Hayden and I kind of going through this passing versus quality time, not issue, but when we were tackling this, I remember approaching him with it and being like, I don't feel like you and I are spending a lot of quality time together. And at first, this was a little bit hard for him to understand because, again, he was like, well, we both work from home. I see you every day. I see you in passing. We have, we talk throughout the day. I saw you this morning. He was like, I'm seeing you. So what do you mean we're not spending like quality time together? We're not spending time together. And I was like, it's not that we're not seeing each other. It's not that we are not, talking throughout the day, but it's more so that we are not dedicating time to each other. We are not spending quality time with each other. We are just kind of going on, doing our daily lives, but that doesn't mean that the time that we're spending in passing is the same as quality time, nor does it have the same impact and effect. Us seeing each other throughout the day doesn't give me the same feeling as it does like after we have a date night or after we have really great conversation together or there's time for us to connect. It doesn't give me the same feeling as it does when I see you in passing when I'm making my coffee. Like, as much as that's great, it's not the same thing. And that was something that once we kind of spoke that into existence and communicated through that, that was crucial. It was crucial for our relationship, my sanity, and equally Hayden's, because being able to spend quality time and fixing that quote unquote issue that we were having and navigating through that was really able to enhance our relationship, which made us work better individually with each other as well, if that makes sense. So that was really, really big in enhancing our relationship. And it was also my biggest tip giving to my friends when they were moving in with their partners. I was like, you need to recognize the difference between passing and quality time, because there is a huge difference. And the sooner you can recognize that there is a difference and the sooner you can get on top of that, that is going to be the biggest thing. So that was something that was really, really important, because we weren't taking the time before to focus on our relationship or to water it and help it continue to grow. We were kind of just assuming like, oh, we live together, we see each other all the time. And I was just as guilty of it too. I was really just as guilty of going through the day-to-day mundane tasks of life. And then it finally hit me one day of like, oh my God, like we're not spending quality time together. Like, of course we're going to have a little tiff here and there, or of course it's not going to feel the same as when we were dating and in this honeymoon phase. Now, I will say something that Hayden and I have always been really, really great about is our communication. We are really excellent communicators, like not to like pat myself on the back or like pride ourselves on this too much, but our relationship didn't start out as like honeymoon phase, which I know some people look down upon. Some people think that like the first few months are like supposed to be the easiest. And like, if it's not easy in the first few months, and like you're setting yourself up for failure, because that's what it's only going to get harder from there. But honestly, because we didn't have that like, honeymoon rose colored glasses in the first few months of us dating, it really forced us to focus on our communication. And we became a really excellent communicators because of it with each other. We don't argue with each other. We don't yell at each other. This man has never raised his voice at me in the 2.5 years that we have been together. And so being able to communicate with him about all of these things that I'm talking to you about today was honestly very comforting, I want to say, and easy, because he has created such a safe space for me to communicate how I'm feeling. And I think that's really important, is having a partner just in general who you're able to feel comfortable communicating these things to. And I am going to talk about how to communicate these things to your partner in a minute. So I'm just going to bookmark this part really quick and we're going to circle back around to it. But I want to emphasize the importance of having a really good communication style with your partner when you move in together, because that's also going to really help you when it comes to the roommate phase, because you're going to be able to communicate through these issues that you're having. Now, I think that it's also just important to recognize that once you move in together and the adult things come into play, like bills or chores or everyday details that you go through in life and errands, sometimes relationships do have a tendency to be or to feel less romantic or sexy. But I think it's really important as the people in the relationship to keep track and keep up with having it feel the way that it did at your happiest or in that honeymoon phase. Like, now that you move in together, it doesn't mean that all of that goes out the window. All of, the sexiness of the relationship and all of the good parts of it. It just means that we have to focus now on really implementing those more, especially in the beginning when you do feel those growing pains. You need to remind yourself why you chose to move in with this person and why you chose to live with them. And I know that it feels like, and I'm kind of catching myself as I'm talking, it does have it. I do feel like right now I'm coming off as kind of like, oh, beware and, proceed with caution when moving in with someone. It really isn't that. Moving in with Hayden and moving in with your significant other, all of my friends will say the same thing. It was the best decision we ever made. I absolutely love my life with Hayden. I am so happy. I am in the best relationship that I have ever been in. I feel safe. I feel cared about. I feel loved and adored every single day. The things that I'm talking to you about right now are just the little tidbits that pop up and the little hiccups that come into play that sometimes we don't know how to navigate. And sometimes we don't know how to approach them because no one gave us the advice in order to do so, if that makes sense. Because a lot of the things that I'm talking to you about today, I didn't have the advice on how to navigate it and I just wung it and it worked for some reason. And thank God it did. It worked. And I feel like it's important to talk about these things because I think social media is a highlight reel, obviously. And we see all of these couples that move in together and everything seems so cheery and jolly and everything's great. But sometimes there are hiccups and that's okay. And I also wanted to reiterate all of this because I think it's also important to recognize that if you have a hiccup, if you're feeling the roommate phase, if you are getting caught up in passing time instead of quality time, it's okay. I know I said this in the beginning, but it doesn't mean that your relationship is doomed or it's a failure. It doesn't mean that you made the wrong decision. I'm just kind of giving you the tidbits and tricks that I have learned along the way to kind of help get through those hiccups without feeling like they're super daunting and scary and, you don't know how to navigate it. And was this the right decision? It's basically to just give you the reassurance that it's all going to be good. That's basically what we're doing here today. So now let's get back to talking about communication and the best way, in my opinion, to bring this up and how to approach it if this is something that you are feeling whenever, at any stage, at any point, regardless how to bring this up. Because truthfully, this was something that, like I said, even though Hayden and I do have such great communication, it was something that, you don't really want to bring up because you don't know, again, how the other person is going to take it. If they're feeling it also, if they're feeling the same way, it's sometimes a little bit difficult to figure out the best way to approach something like this. But I think I've kind of narrowed it down in terms of like what I tell my friends when they're feeling this way, of like how to approach it. The biggest thing, in my opinion, when having this conversation is to not be accusatory, do not point fingers, do not, be really abrasive when having this conversation. I wouldn't say anything like, oh, you're not paying enough attention to me, or you don't care about this relationship, or anything that falls under that umbrella. Because when you open up that type of language, it really is setting up the other person to automatically become defensive. Whenever you start being super accusatory, what naturally happens? The other person is going to get a little bit defensive. They're going to give you a little bit of pushback, and you really want to approach this conversation having none of that. You don't want any of that to come about. You don't want that to be the result of this conversation. So when I first approached this topic with Hayden and I had the conversation with him, basically what I started the conversation with, and this is something that Hayden and I talk about when we are ever really having a disagreement or talking through things, is reminding each other that we are on the same team. Reminding each other that we are each other's people, we're on the same team, and what the common goal is here, and that we have the same common goal. And that common goal is that we want to be together. We are choosing each other. We love each other. That is the common goal here, and that we want each other to be happy. We want the relationship to be healthy. We both are wanting the same things. So because of that, how do we now go about, working through this little hiccup? That is how I started the conversation. And I always think that it is really the best way to start a conversation because you want to start it on neutral ground. Again, you don't want to start it being accusatory because this is really nothing to be accusatory about. This really isn't. This isn't like some big, bad, scary thing. This is literally just, hey, I want us to put more effort into focusing on our relationship. And I think that we should both figure out ways that we can do that for each other and show up for each other in that way. That's literally it. That's it. I think a lot of times we have a tendency to overcomplicate these conversations and make them more dramatic. And because we work them so much, like we work them up so much in our head, it's easy to create like this big, daunting, like we need to talk kind of vibe when it does not have to be that way and it shouldn't be that way. This is not bad. This is not scary. This is just you recognizing that there's a little bit of a hiccup and reassessing and giving yourself a relationship refresh. It's all it is. And hopefully you have a partner who is receptive and able to communicate how they're feeling with you, and you guys are able to work through that together and figure out the best strategy in moving forward. That's all it has to be. But again, it's not even that I could give you guys so much input as to what to say. It's more so what not to say. Don't make it a big scary thing. Don't come out swinging. It's not that, it doesn't have to be like that. It really shouldn't be like that. Lay it on neutral ground. Remind yourself of the common goal. That's really what my guidelines are and my tips are for approaching a conversation like this. You don't need to get accusatory. You don't want your partner to get defensive. None of that needs to happen. This is actually what could end up being a positive conversation. And hopefully by the end of it, you guys are both going to feel more connected. Even this conversation is going to make you feel like you are, getting closer and working and problem solving together as a couple and as a team, because that is what you are. You are a partnership. You are a team. You are a couple who is working together to make their relationship stronger. That's what it is. So it really should be more of like a positive conversation more towards the end of it. So don't come out swinging. It doesn't got to be like that. Yeah, that's my biggest thing. Now, once you do communicate, like I said, it's about coming up with a plan on how to fix this, whether that is planning, date nights that are set in stone. Every Friday is your date night, or every Wednesday is your date night. Or let's say your schedules aren't as predictable. You say, we're going to switch off date nights. We're going to switch off where I plan a date night and then you plan a date night. And we'll kind of assess when that can happen at the beginning of each week, or on every Sunday when let's have a tradition of having, a Sunday sit down dinner together where we cook and we can connect at the end of the week. Let's do that. Figuring out the best ways for you guys to navigate what's going to work best for you in your relationship, and how to, really focus on coming together and spending more quality time together. That's the biggest thing here. That's what we want to do. That is the goal here. Now, I'm going to kind of give you guys me and Hayden's, or Hayden and I's, I don't know. I'm going to kind of give you guys our favorite way to reconnect whenever we have kind of felt like we needed a relationship refresh, and it has worked every single time. Works like a charm. Typically, we try to decide two things. We decide, are we going to go out or are we going to stay in? If we're going to go out, then we're going to go out to dinner, and that's going to be the thing. But if we stay in, honestly, we have a lot of fun staying in and having an at-home date night. Even as people who work from home and who, live and breathe and do everything that we need to do at this house, sometimes it is really nice to have that at-home date night too. I do, recommend getting out every once in a while whenever you can, but having the at-home date night is equally as effective and impactful if you make it that way. And there are ways to do that. Now, what Hayden and I will do is we will set out like an intentional date night. So let's say Friday. Like Friday is going to be our date night. We make each other, like we're on the same page about that. We're like, yay, Friday date night. Woo. So Friday night is our date night. When Friday rolls around, we will spend either like Thursday night or Friday during the day, we're gonna clean up the house a little bit. We're gonna clean up a little bit because we don't want to have our date night just like in the messy, cluttered house. Or our house is really never messy. I'm a clean freak, but like we're not gonna just live in the same clutter that we have been for throughout the week. You kind of want to give your space a little refresh as well. Get the vibes right. That's what we want. We want good vibes. So once the vibes are right, you're going to get the space right. Then I say, put yourself together a little bit. And I don't mean go crazy, because if you know me, you know that I have my daytime pajamas, my daytime sweatpants, and my nighttime sweatpants. And that is basically how I live if I don't have to leave the house, because I typically don't. But I will say, when it comes to, wanting to, feel like this is more of a date and it's an at-home date, I think putting a little bit of effort in is important just for the feeling. If I don't feel the same on these like at home date nights if I'm wearing the same sweatpants that I've been wearing all day. Like I'll go and change. It doesn't have to be anything crazy. It can be a cute little loungewear set. Like just something that makes me feel a little bit more put together. I'm not putting on like my whole, makeup routine for when I film. Like I'm just doing the basics, just the basics to make me feel a little bit more put together, put me a little bit more in the mood of like wanting to be on a date, right? So that's important too. And then have a fun activity for you guys to do together. Hayden and I's favorite one is making a cocktail and cooking dinner. Hayden used to be a bartender, so picking out like a fun cocktail for us to make at home. Like I'm a really big wine girl, but there is something about like making a cocktail together and like having that experience that is really fun and is something that's like great for quality time if that's something that you're into. If you drink or if you like enjoy a cocktail here and there, that's something that's fun. And Hayden is, luckily for me, very good at making drinks because he used to do it a lot. So that is what we like to do. We'll make a little craft cocktail that we can both sip on, and then we'll both really enjoy cooking something together. Typically throughout the week, I've said this before, I'm very lucky because Hayden is a fantastic cook and I'm not really touching anything in the kitchen. If it were up to me, my diet would consist of Annie's mac and cheese, and that is that. But Hayden is a phenomenal cook and he loves to do it. So throughout this night, this date night, this cooking experience, if we have our craft cocktail and then we begin cooking a meal, and it's going to be something that we don't do normally. It's not like we have our staples that we do throughout the week, as I'm sure a lot of people do, but this is going to be different. And you could totally, like DoorDash something or Uber Eats something in and like have something delivered. But personally, I enjoy the act of cooking something together. I think that it really brings, it's a great way to have quality time. So we're going to pick a meal that we haven't made before, something that we don't make very often. And we'll like send each other different Instagram reels on of different recipes throughout the week. So we give each other ideas and we'll be able to look and see and like kind of scroll back and be like, oh, we should do this one. And same with different cocktails. Like if we ever see a cocktail that we're like, oh my God, that's like cool and we should make that, we'll send it to each other. And that way we have like kind of a, Pinterest board, so to speak, of all of these ideas that we can do. And it kind of makes the process a little easier. So then we'll have the thing that we want to cook together and we'll both do it. And when I say we, I mean like we loosely, like it's mainly him, but I'll like help here and there. But it's just a way for us to connect. I'll sit on the counter and he'll do his cooking and we'll just talk, and we'll talk about the things that like we haven't really been able to talk about throughout the week, or we'll like spill tea to each other, or we'll tell like whatever it is, the conversation will naturally flow, and it's a great way to have quality time. And I think a big thing with this too is to put the phones away. I'm a really, really big advocate for that when you're having these at-home date nights, because you want to make it feel like a date. If you were on a dinner date, you are not going to be sitting there scrolling on your phone or taking phone calls or, texting 24/7. Like put the electronics away and have the time to actually sit there with your significant other and, enjoy your time together. That is incredibly important, and it's something that so often gets overlooked. I think a lot of times people think that when it comes to date nights, they're not as attainable because they have to be some like lavish, insane thing. And that's just so not true. You can have such a great date night and, really immerse yourself in that quality time still while being at home. You just have to spice things up a little bit. You got to shift the routine a little bit. So that is something that we love to do. Like that's our perfect at-home date night if we're not going out. And then after we cook, we'll sit at the dinner table, which sometimes we forget that we have because during the week we'll sit on the couch and watch a show together. But we'll sit at the dinner table and we will talk. And it sounds so simple, but it really goes a long way. We'll just, again, continue having that conversation. I've talked to you guys about this before. We have that We're Not Really Strangers card game, and I freaking love that card game. It's just a great way to ask questions that you wouldn't normally think to ask, and to really have, it gives you like a gateway into just bigger conversations that are sometimes a little bit either daunting to ask, or again, you just wouldn't think to ask them, but it's a great way to have those conversations and just continue the night. And then we'll either, continue doing the cocktails, or we'll switch over to wine. And that to me is like such a great date night. And then we'll finish it by watching a movie. I still think that putting the phones and keeping the phones away is great, because I'm someone where if I have my phone and I'm watching a movie, like I have such a tendency to just grab this thing and start scrolling. Just sitting there with your significant other, picking a movie you guys want to watch and watching it together. I think a lot of this just comes down to romanticizing your time together and using it as quality time. The things that I'm telling you guys aren't crazy and lavish and unattainable things. They don't take a lot of insane effort. There's effort that's in there, but it just comes down to romanticizing your time together, romanticizing the cooking experience, romanticizing making a cocktail together, or whatever it is you want to do, whether you guys want to do a puzzle or whether you guys want to go get ice cream together at your favorite store, or go to your favorite dinner spot, try out a new bar that you haven't gone to, and not like a crowded, like crazy bar, but like one of those bars that are more intimate and that you'll be able to actually converse with each other and have conversation. There's different ways to romanticize that quality time together. So that is what I would say is a big one for us. Now, the second thing that I want to recommend, and this is just a little like tidbit that I don't do nearly as often as I should, but Hayden is so freaking good at it. And that is leaving little love notes. When you are living with someone and sometimes you feel like it's just, the days are passing and it's mundane, and, you're in that phase of either having that roommate phase, or you're just in that passing time phase and not quality time, leaving a little love note goes such a long way. Whether that's a sticky note on the mirror, a little I love you note by the coffee maker, or like a page of page of writing about your favorite things about them. Just giving them those words of affirmation are so nice. Whenever I literally have a box, I'm looking at it right now. I have this box, and the box inside of it has just like a bunch of mementos of mine, just with my friends or with Hayden, and I have all of the notes that he's written me in this box. They mean so much to me and they're so special. And whenever I see those, it literally makes my heart so happy. I'm so obsessed with him, but whenever I see these notes, I just get so happy. And it's just like, again, one of those reminders of like romanticizing the everyday. We talk a lot about like romanticizing our own lives and, making life a little bit more fun and exciting and less mundane, but that can also apply to relationships as well. And like I said, Hayden is so good at it, and I need to get better at it. Like leaving a little love note or leaving a little sticky note, or if you forget one day, send a text. Send a fun, flirty little text, whether that's an I love you, whether that's like I can't wait to see you later, whatever it is. Just remind your partner that you're thinking about them throughout the day. It's the best feeling. If you've had that done to you before, you know how great it feels to experience that. And I think that guys deserve it too. Like our partners deserve it too. They deserve to feel loved and wanted and secure and valued in the relationship. And so I'm not good at the sticky note thing, but I am good at the text thing. Like I'll send a text to Hayden, just giving him that reassurance or those words of affirmation. And not that he needs the reassurance at all, but it's just nice to feel appreciated and valued. So that would be another thing that I would say to just kind of pop in every once in a while, because again, it's just like a little cute thing that's always unexpected, and it's never, ever a bad idea. Absolutely ever. And again, it's just one of those things that like spices it up. It gets you out of the roommate phase. It's like, we're not roommates. I love you. That's what it is. The last one that I want to talk about, is being spontaneous. Again, talked about this a little bit with the love notes, but just in general, being spontaneous whenever you can. I know people have lives and work, and sometimes your schedule does not allow you to be spontaneous. Sometimes you have kids. A lot of alternative and outside factors can play into this. But if you see the moment to be spontaneous, take it. Whether you have a spontaneous moment, you're both at home and not really doing much, you're both kind of sitting on the couch, or you're both just kind of like la-di-daing about your day, take that moment and just go be spontaneous. Go on a walk together. Go get ice cream together. Go pour yourself a glass of wine and sit out on the porch and just people watch and just, have a moment together. Sit out on the balcony, wherever you live. have that moment, be spontaneous. We get into these everyday routines of life and it can just feel very repetitive. And when you're in that roommate phase, that's oftentimes what you're feeling. You're just feeling very repetitive. You're not feeling the excitement. You're not feeling the spark. You're not feeling all of those like warm and fuzzy feelings that you were feeling in the beginning. But being spontaneous is a great way to break that cycle and remind yourself that you guys are still dating and that you guys do still love each other. You don't need that reminder, but it's a nice little one to have. Like, it's nice to just break up the cycle a little bit. And I think that that is a perfect way to do it. Now, lastly, with this all being said, the number one thing that I want to remind you guys of that I've mentioned a lot in this episode, but I just think it's so important to reiterate. It's very important to understand that sometimes you are going to hit these plateaus. It's going to happen. And it's okay. I think that it's really important to communicate your feelings to your partner when you're starting to feel this way and not to just like let it stir inside you, because I am someone who I'm not the biggest on expressing my feelings, and that was until I met Hayden and I realized that like I had such a safe space to express my feelings, and I learned how to communicate better as a partner and also just as an individual in general. And so I've learned that the best results do not come from me sitting back and letting myself spiral and have all these feelings stirring and really just like, spiraling over it. And like, what's it called? It's not like a ticking time bomb, but it's, I don't know, but you guys get my point. It's not letting yourself sit back and just stir with all these feelings and stir with this irritability and stir with this feeling of, well, why isn't he bringing it up to me? Like, if I'm feeling it, why doesn't he feel it? Like, why isn't he telling me about this? Why isn't he initiating a date night with me? Why isn't he doing all of these things? Throw the ego of all of that out the window. Throw the ego of, I need him to come to me because I'm feeling this way and he must be feeling this way, and I'm going to make him ask me on a date and I'm going to make him come to me with these feelings. That will get you nowhere, because if you are sitting and waiting and waiting and waiting, not only are you going to be irritable because they're not coming to you and they're not doing what you want, you're also going to be irritable because nothing is getting done. And also, the people and everyone in the world, but also the people that you were dating, the person that you were dating is not a mind reader. They cannot read your mind and listen and know what you were thinking before you say it. I wish that they could, because I have done that a lot. And it's been something that I've realized of like, I need to communicate. If I want something to change, I need to communicate. If I want to kind of redirect and give us a relationship refresh, I need to communicate. It's okay to be the one to bring it up. And it doesn't do me any good, and it's not going to do you any good to just sit back and let yourself go stir crazy over this. So the better you guys get at communicating this kind of feeling that you go through, and the better you guys get at, getting ahead of it before it gets too much or too overwhelming, the better you guys will be for it in the long run. It's going to help you so much throughout every single aspect of your relationship if you guys are able to get ahead of it. Because when you guys are better as a couple, like when you guys are at your peak as a couple, you are better communicators, you're better problem solvers, you're better at going throughout your day and getting things done. Like, it trickles over into every other aspect of your life. So really make sure that you are able to find a way to properly communicate through these things, because again, you guys are going to be better for it in the long run. So that is what I have to say about all of this. And I hope that, again, I didn't scare you. I hope that this wasn't like doom and gloom, but I also feel like this doesn't get talked about a lot. Like, I feel like no one really prepares you for a lot of this. And that's why when I kind of moved in with Hayden, and maybe I just wasn't listening, but when I moved in with Hayden and I was learning all of these things and going through these growing pains, I was like, no one talks about this. Why doesn't no one talk about this? This is like not something that I was expecting. And learning how to communicate through these things was not something that I was expecting to do. But I want to be able to remind you guys that not only do these problems and do these hiccups is the better word, sometimes arise, but it's not the end all be all. It's not the end of the world. It doesn't mean that you guys aren't great and that you guys aren't like fantastic as a couple. It doesn't mean any of that. It just means you need a little relationship refresh. That's all it is. But with that being said, you guys, that is all for me today. Thank you guys so much for tuning into another episode of My Thoughts Exactly. If you're new here, hi, my name is Savannah. I'm your host of My Thoughts Exactly. Make sure you guys go ahead and hit that subscribe button. That way you never miss an episode. We post weekly here every single Friday on the podcast and on YouTube. You're not going to want to miss it. I'll be back next week with a brand new one, and I'll see you there. Bye, guys.